I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll do a quick roll call. I'm Aaron Mays, Council District 7, Chair of this committee.
Tony Emerson, Council District 4.
Mike Padilla, Council District 5.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our May 8th meeting.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next order of business is the 2020 TGT fund budget. We're going to have some discussion and possibly some action on that. So I'll turn it over to City Manager.
I'll make a few comments, please. Thank you. One of the things that you have before you is the full report related to the special events. And I have a number of folks from the city that are involved in the process related to special events, from police, traffic control, Brenda, related to the things that they do in regards to each of their departments, just they approve those special events. The report outlines the amount that we spend for each event. It breaks it down by the different departments and to what they do. And so it's something that we've been doing for a while, trying to track this. When you look at it, obviously, the fee that we charge comes nowhere close to covering any of these events. Even the least expensive one, I think, is over $100, and we're only collecting $50. And that could be a whole different issue for another time for a discussion regarding what we want to do for those permit fees. But some of these, as we look at them, it's pretty substantial amounts that we spend with regards to St. Patrick's Day Parade and all the things that go along with it is over $14,000. Now, in the discussions that I had and looked at the events that are involved with, specifically with tourism that I consider to be in the past that are supported by Visit Topeka and the festivals that occur and tap that, we're looking at least $9,107 is what we spent last year supporting those events. And then overall, the other reason to remember that we're looking at this is that we have a general fund shortfall that's going to happen, and we're trying to look at alternatives that we can consider for these activities. And so I think that we look at it being reasonable related to how much we're seeking there, if not a different amount. But looking at it from the standpoint of that there needs to be some look at that as a funding source related to addressing some of our other shortfalls in the budget.
Yep. Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Trout, on this, I guess a couple of questions. First of all, I hate to complain, but we just got this like
I know.
Like 10 seconds
What
ago.
we did last time was we presented you the overall cost that we had related to that. That's why I'm bringing out just that the specific events that oftentimes are looked at by BTI, that our expenses related to those was $9,107 relatively.
Sure. I guess I just some questions about just the report itself. What is FOB?
What?
What is handled by FOB?
FOB.
Okay, field opera. Okay. I couldn't find anywhere where it said what these acronyms meant.
I apologize.
No problem. Also, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Keep going.
So some of the things are like blacked out, like there's no, and I'm sorry, specifically I'm looking at this color thing here. This.
Right.
Is there no cost on? I guess I don't understand. Some
Probably,
of them don't, because some of them that are FOB
you know.
do have a cost associated. So I can't.
Yeah. Go ahead, please, Sergeant Collins.
Yeah, the FOB, it's Field Operations Bureau.
Okay.
So when it's blocked out like that, it's most of the time it's like a block party that's only really, just one block long in nature. The footprint's not very long. It's really just neighbors getting together. So FOB will go out prior to the event, make sure that the traffic control's been set up correctly, and they'll spot check it throughout the day to make sure that there's no issue. So it really doesn't have a drain on the resources. Officers aren't dedicated to hang out at that event.
Okay, thank you for that. The only reason I guess I question is some of these other events have like $57.87 is another, and I mean, I don't know what your rate is, but I bet if you send one officer out to look at it, you spent more than $57. So
Correct.
Just in trying to be fair, I guess, to everything, I hate to say, well, the stuff in NOTO doesn't cost us anything, but yet the Boy Scouts are costing us $60. I guess I just want to make sure we're looking at apples and apples here. So, thank you.
And it does look like a couple of those events were canceled that are
Yes.
blacked out.
Yeah,
So obviously those didn't cost anything.
right.
Do you have anything else? Or?
No, I think that covers it. I just wanted to make sure, that we looked at this and felt like we needed to provide this as a backup support for we talked about that we had over 200,000 in expenses related to the various events, not just the ones that are downtown or that might be related to DTI, but that we had that amount and really felt like it'd be important for us to provide this to you, to provide the solid background with regards to what each of those charges are and what departments are making an effort related to each of these events.
Okay. Well, looking at these numbers, I think it might be wise for the council as a whole to start reevaluating some of our permit fees. I mean, obviously, a block party shouldn't be paying a whole lot of money, but I think it might be worth looking at for some of the larger events. Any other comments? Nick, did you want to?
I'll just say, the budget we talked about a few weeks ago right now includes the $100,000 transfer to the general fund for these special events, which, again, I'll just say is what we see as an appropriate use for that funding. But, possible decision today, or if you feel like you need more time to make it, we can adjust the budget as needed, depending on the recommendation from the council. So even if you make any changes, we can still, I think, pass a recommended budget today, and then we can update that and just make sure you're comfortable. So we can leave it as is, make changes, and I think we can still adopt today, or
Okay.
adopt a recommendation.
All right. Any thoughts on the budget?
Well, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, I look at this and then I look at this real quickly because, again, we haven't really had a whole lot of time to go through it. And I'm wondering that the resources that we use are the most efficient resources. And by that I mean, are we doing it by matter of past practice that we assign certain numbers or certain divisions or units for the various needs of these events? Or have we looked to see if we can economize in some areas or duplicate resources somehow so that the draw on the police department is extremely high, and it's important because safety is of concern in all of these. But I'm just wondering if there have been thoughts to reducing the number of officers in a way that doesn't compromise safety, but maybe at the same time is more economical to both them, the fire department, everybody that's involved with this process, so that down the road that we all come to at least a lesser amount and still not reduce the number of events that we have.
Well, I think one of the things my understanding is that we have reduced what we were providing for assets compared to a year or two ago. So I think it'd probably be best, Sergeant Connell, to go through what you're currently deploying for different events.
Yeah, absolutely. When approving the permits, I look I'll look over the permit, but I'll see what kind of a event it is. If it's a 5K run, if it's in a neighborhood, we typically need traffic control or officers at intersections. If it's a smaller event downtown, like can't think of like a science or the Science Tech Festival, which is really just about 1 block or 2 blocks long. It doesn't have nearly as big of a footprint, and the draw for people to be down there is not nearly as big. So we don't have as much manpower down there for those kind of events. But the larger events where there's more people, then we tend to throw more officers to those events. So, I mean, when reviewing the permits, there's a number of things we look at. Like I said, the footprint, the size of the event, the number of people that are estimated to be there, whether alcohol is going to be involved. But we have, in the last year, we have looked at ways of reducing that, such as in years past for the larger parades, we would have officers at intersections just guarding barricades, making sure they don't get moved. We now have, talking to the organizers, we're trying to get them to come up with volunteers, really just to babysit barricades while I can utilize more officers along the route, along the footprint to patrol. Other options for 5Ks, 5K runs, like we've got the Brat Trot coming up. In years past, they've ran through Oakland, and there's been like 22 locations where we've had officers staying at those locations to conduct traffic control. I'm trying to work with the organizers on still utilizing the neighborhood, but also going up through like Santa Fe Trail and the Oakland Billard Trail around the parks there. That cuts down on the number of officers that I need to actually conduct traffic control, but it still allows them to run in the neighborhood of like the parish or where the event's being held. So we are looking at options to reducing the actual number of officers, and we have done quite a bit of that last year, but we're still looking to do some more.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant. I appreciate those efforts, and I would ask you to continue to do that because my concern isn't just the cost, but how we're utilizing our officers. You know, we still hear about response times and so forth, so we want to keep the officers available for other responsibilities and duties in the city and not have them so tied up on some of these events that we enjoy having, but cause some drain on our available personnel.
Correct.
So I appreciate that you're looking at it on a regular basis and not just going from past experience. And really, I like the idea of talking to the organizers about them providing some assistance in monitoring their own event. Right. I think it's to their benefit to do that. I know it's hard to get volunteers sometimes, but I think that's important that they contribute in some way that to help relieve some of the costs to the city and still continue to be able to have their events.
Correct.
So thank you, Sergeant.
So, looking at this, we've got a total of $124,000. And I did want to also note, it looks like about 31,000 of it was related to president and vice president visiting, which probably isn't going to happen
For a while.
every year. I noticed on there that $1,000 went to the vice president, his Wichita visit. So, did we send officers to Wichita, or?
I think we did. I think we did deploy some assets just as some of the other agencies helped us when
They helped,
president-
okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
A lot of questions, Chair, but
Okay.
I need time to
Okay.
look through this, really to formulate them.
Also, I noticed on here, the Spirit of Kansas was almost $10,000, which seems quite a bit higher than most of the other items, with the exception of Fiesta, which obviously is like a week-long event. So why is Spirit of Kansas so much higher? Is there something, is it because of the fireworks that we have to have
Anybody know?
fire department out there?
Does anybody know?
Maybe.
By the request of the Sheriff's Department, we do help out with the Spirit of Kansas. We've done for years, 15 plus years. I think ever since it moved from the city out to the lake, we've assisted. The cost is high because we have officers out there. Last year, we actually cut the number of officers down. I think I had 10 officers out there. In years past, we've had 23 or so assist. Last year, I cut the number of officers down, but the cost is high because it is on a holiday. So there is holiday pay that's involved with that. And the reason that we do help, we help with the motorcycle unit, helps with the escorts of the buses. They park at Ball Diamond here in town, and then they have a shuttle service that takes a lot of people out to the Spirit of Kansas to watch the event, and then we help escort them back, trying to relieve some of the strain on traffic and all that happens at the end of the event and at the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, well, so what would be the will of the committee?
Well, initially, I would wonder if we had anyone who wanted to speak again
Yep.
To the committee about the request from the city.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Otting?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brett Otting, president of Visit Topeka. To be honest, I was hoping I didn't have to hand anything out. To be honest, I was hoping I wasn't even going to have to speak, but I feel compelled to speak a little bit because it seems that there's a general lack of overall awareness of the impact of tourism that's being discussed right now. A lot of the conversation that took place was regarding St. Patrick's Day, Oakland Run, President Trump, Spirit of Kansas, 4 events that have nothing to do with tourism, that have nothing to do with Visit Topeka. We discussed this $100,000, which would be a 7% cut to Visit Topeka, which is the sales and marketing organization for the community. That $100,000 would be 3 1/1000ths of a percent of the city budget. These 4 events that were discussed had a cost of $9,107, which is 3 10,000ths of a percent. Those events, and I'm going to give you some quick math here, utilizing the 1.15% of sales tax that does go to just the city. Those 4 events, if you look at the spreadsheet on the back, had a total attendance of 22,000 people. That is $1.1 million in direct spending. That equates to $8,250 in sales tax. And the total arrivals, that is tracked by us of everybody that attended those events that drove farther than 50 miles, so they're not local. That spend is higher because they typically stay in a hotel. That would equate to $1,128 in sales tax. Combine those two as $9,378, $200 more than the expected expense for the city to put those events on. I'm really not sure what else we can say. I have Rosa here with me, who's our director of events. She's the one that works with the city staff, with the police during these events. She was talking to me a little bit while we were discussing this, that Visit Topeka's never had any police officers for their events man barricades. We actually pay volunteers to come man our barricades. Sometimes those volunteers are Rosa's kids that are working during that time, or me or any other staff as well. Again, we are combating the perception that there's nothing to do in Topeka, and we're combating the continuous articles in the Capital Journal that there are population declines because people are moving to other cities. We are the ones that are trying to fix that by showing people that this is a place that you would want to live after they have hopefully visited. And taking 7% of our budget away, somebody made a comment of, I hope that this wouldn't mean the end of some of these events. Absolutely would mean the end of some of these events from our perspective. We have specific missions. These events are kind of out of our mission, and we would have to, we could not cut a sales effort to continue to work with the hotels and bring conventions and ball tournaments to town, which means we would have to work on looking at alternatives, which could be some of these events. So I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
If I may,
Councilman Padilla?
Mr. Otting, you mentioned something. Can you speak to how you utilize those funds to attract newcomers to the city for events? So, I mean, the marketing strategy.
We spend, we have a large marketing budget, and we have an example, the best example, not counting the visitor guide, social media, where we do paid social media posts as well as just general social media posts, and our website and our newsletter. Our newsletter goes out to thousands of people once a month that we send out talking about what events are coming to town. But we have deals with, for instance, the Capitol Journal, where we pay them a flat fee every month to get so many impressions per day on their website. When there is an event coming up, even if it is not one of our events, if it's the Fiesta or the NHRA races, we will switch a general ad talking about coming and visiting Topeka to come attend that event. We also do that in the markets of Omaha, Lincoln, Springfield, Joplin, Missouri area, and Tulsa. And depending on the type of event, we will do it in Des Moines as well, all with their local newspapers or their media providers.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Fry?
Good morning. I'm Vince Fry, president of Downtown Topeka Incorporated. I really appreciate what the city does for all of the events throughout Topeka. I just wanted to make sure that this committee understands that every event that Downtown Topeka Incorporated does, we do with money that we raise through sponsorships. We are always paying for everything that we have expenses for. We also help with the St. Patrick's Parade. We help with the Christmas Parade, Veterans, Fiesta Parade, by paying for barricades for those events. And we paid for insurance in the past, porta potties. All of the events downtown pay a deposit for cleanup. And I think every organization that has ever given that deposit has gotten the entire amount back. And the reason for that is because we pay a person to go in and clean up on Sundays after big events. We pay overtime, we bring in contract labor, and we clean that downtown up. So from the standpoint of the city having to clean up after downtown events, I really think that burden has been on us, and I think we handle that well. Certainly the police being at our events, we appreciate, very important, especially when we have 10 or 15,000 people for our events, or even more for parades. So I just wanted this committee to realize that every event that Downtown Topeka Incorporated does, we work with the city. They tell us how many barricades we need. We go out and we rent those, we pay for those, we clean up, and all of our expenses are covered. So anyway, any questions?
Nope.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Young?
Kurt Young, Executive Director of the Topeka Lodging Association. I'm kind of like Brett. I was really hoping I wouldn't have to get to this podium today because my message hasn't changed from what it's been for the last several years when we come here and have this discussion. I look at what we've accomplished in the last several years in terms of trying to drive the focus for transient guest tax dollars to put that money where it's going to create a return on the investment. And that's been our focus. And we've been successful as a team, all of us, the folks that preceded you on this committee, and we've worked together and tried to work towards that end. And it seems like the last couple of years we've been here having the same discussion about taking a step backwards. And that kind of bothers me, not only from a factual standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint, because there's probably not an organization in town right now that has committed as much time, effort, and money to the success of downtown than the Topeka Lodging Association. They did that first step with the coming to you for the transient guest tax money to even build a plaza, and then followed that up with the Tourism Business Improvement District. I'm going to tell you what and how I was able to sell, why and how I was able to sell the Tourism Business Improvement District to our membership. And that was based primarily on the success that we'd had in previous years in ensuring that transient guest tax dollars got spent wisely. Wisely being where they would create a return on the investment. So now here we are, after we've come this far and had so much success in terms of getting started on a plaza. It's just, I'm over there every day. And last week when it was sunny and dry and we were actually making some progress again, I stood out in the middle of that plaza and I just did a 360, kind of walking around visualizing what that was going to look like when it's done. And this, I have to come back to the T-bid, what I call the T-bid money. That was done on a good faith effort that the city was going to continue with its good faith to leave the transient guest tax money alone and let it stand where it needed to be, and that's in selling and marketing Topeka. Now, and I'll just leave it at that. I've got another thought, but it probably borders on just being a little bit unsettled about the process that has taken place to get us to this point today. I mean, we're faced with paperwork that's been presented here today that nobody got to see ahead of this meeting. Nobody's had a chance to evaluate it. And you're being asked to make a decision. And I would ask that you reject the proposal to take $100,000 of transit guest tax money to subsidize the city's budget. As I've said before, if we're going to grow, we need to recognize that, step up to the plate, and budget for it, but not budget for it with transient guest tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Farnick?
Matt Pavarnik with the Greater Topeka Partnership, today representing Visit Topeka. I have a 22-year-old U.S. Marine, and one of the, I think about him a lot because he's gone, but one of my favorite stories is when he was about 4 years old, we were driving down the road, and we went to the gas station, and we were driving down the road. He said, "Dad, I just figured out how we can save a lot of money for our family." And I said, "How?" He said, "Stop putting gas in the car." And I said, "You know what, son? That's a great idea. That probably would save us a lot of money." He'd even gone so far as to figure out how much it would save us. But I told him, if we don't put gas in the car won't go. And I feel the same way about transient guest tax. If we don't put gas in the car won't go. If we don't spend dollars developing and marketing the community, our economy won't go. Brett has shared a lot of information on the return on this investment. So this would be actually a regressive decision. And sometimes you do have to invest some dollars to get that return on the investment. The last thing I'll say is that Visit Topeka is actually an accredited destination marketing organization. It's accredited by an organization called Destination International. That's rare to have an accreditation, and also our leader of Visit Topeka, Brett, is a CDME, Certified Destination Marketing Executive, Management Executive. And so he comes to us, we have Brett on our team that very much is capable about making recommendations for strategies on how to build tourism and build that return on investment, and also the organization being accredited. I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that's very important, and we're fortunate to have that in the community. So I really trust what the Visit Topeka board recommends and what Brett and our other professionals. By the way, everybody that's talked today is smarter than I am, but I just wanted to make those comments today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So I've got a question. On here, we're taking 100,000. I've noticed that some items have gone up in the budget, some have gone down. The bid fund looks like it's about $25,000 less than it was 2 years ago. And Visit Topeka looks like it's about, 40,000 less. But it looks like the zoo has gone up, the admin fee has gone up, the Sunflower's going up, Downtown Plaza's gone up, Evel Knievel. So how do we, are there reasons why some are going up and some are going down?
Go ahead.
Okay, so part of it, again, with Sunflower Soccer and with the 1% allocation, those are just straight allocations. And same thing with, I believe with Visit Topeka and the Visit Topeka bid fund, I'm trying to remember from a couple of years ago, I think we might have changed just the percentage allocation there, but it's been an allocation with the zoo. It's a 10%, subtracting a 2% admin fee, which we take out of each of these three categories. So the TGT base, the Sunflower Soccer, and the 1%, we take a 2% admin fee out for that. The Topeka Zoo, as it was in 2019 and proposed in 2020, is 10% after that, and then Visit Topeka base is 80%, and the Topeka bid fund is 10%. So after you take out the 2% admin fee, 80% goes to Visit Topeka of that 5% base, 10% goes to the bid fund, 10% goes to zoo as a general fund transfer. With Sunflower Soccer, there have been some additional costs in addition to the initial lease payment that we did for some infrastructure improvements there. So I believe some parking lot lighting updates and some, I believe, fencing. And then we passed the $560,000 in additional renovations, which haven't hit yet, although I think we just made our first payment for some field turf renovations. The 1%, that's still a relatively new, started in 2015, and those are just straight allocations based on a percentage, and that can vary a little bit from year to year just based on timing of payments, but that's there's a percentage allocation that goes to each of those after the 2% admin fee comes out.
Okay, so Sunflower Soccer and the 1% allocation, we aren't really at liberty to change any of that, right? That's pretty much set. And we're looking at just the base.
With the 1%, yes. On Sunflower Soccer now, they, and it was obviously a bigger topic earlier this year when we were talking about the potential renovations. They do just generate, not contingency, they do generate a fund balance because The lease payment, what we initially figured, we've actually been collecting more than that. And so by the end of 2032, when the tax rolls off, I think we were looking at about 3.2 million accumulated over that time. And we've allocated 560 of that for those additional renovations that you approved as committee earlier this year. But that does generate a balance. I know there's been ongoing discussions about what that potentially could be. But there is, I think, some flexibility there in the future.
Questions or comments? All right. You guys want to take action on this today?
Well, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Padilla?
I wasn't prepared to take action today, but I don't know that having an additional meeting would give us more information than we already have now that we've got this additional follow-up. Just as a matter of comment, if I could, I do appreciate the efforts on the part of city manager and his staff to look at our overall operating budgets to keep us in the black, as it were. But I don't know that I'm willing to accept his proposal at this time because I do feel that a lot of the things that I've been able to either experience firsthand or get feedback from people who participate in a lot of these events and people who have yet to participate but have made comments, well, I hope this continues because I feel I missed out on something, so I hope this continues. And when I hear good things about Topeka from people outside of Topeka, like Kansas City and other places, and they're saying, well, things are going on in Topeka, I don't want to stop in the middle of the game. I think that the efforts on behalf of the other organizations to continue to promote Topeka is commendable, and I think that their expectation that the city would do its part as well and keep some skin in the game as well, because I think the overall health and welfare of the city has many components contributing to that. And I do believe that a healthy and vibrant visitors effort and events effort brings people to Topeka so they can see it for what it can be and what it is becoming. And if that is reduced, in my opinion, I think that kind of is counterproductive to our overall efforts. So for me, I would, if we were going to make a vote today, I would vote to reject the proposed amendment to the budget, and that's where I stand. So, thank you.
Any comments, Councilman Emerson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo a lot of the same thoughts as my colleague, Mr. Padilla. And I would be, I guess I would, Mr. Padilla, do you want to put that in the form of a motion?
I will.
I would second that motion to restore the $100,000 cut, I guess, to not move the 100,000, I guess.
Okay, have a motion and a second. In discussion on the motion, are we gonna just put that back to the Visit Topeka? Is that the most appropriate
Yes.
way to do it? Okay.
And if I may, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Emerson?
But coupled with that, and this, I guess this maybe isn't directly on the motion, but we see there are a lot of events that do generate cost to the city. I do going forward. I know the city needs to cover our costs on things. And I guess I would ask that we maybe do look at our fee structure on some of these larger things, because don't want to put a damper on them. On the other hand, we need to make sure our taxpayers aren't unfairly burdened with the cost of these events either. So there needs to be some equity.
Now, I would sort of echo that. And also on these, I noticed a lot of these are fundraisers for organizations. And part of me wonders if we're spending $1,000 to help out with a fundraiser for a private organization and not getting anything back in return, I wonder if that's something we need to, look at just a little bit closer. And I think Mr. Otting made a good comment earlier about manning the barricades. If we're sending officers out on overtime when we could get, someone in an orange vest to stand there, perhaps that's something we need to be doing. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next order of business is any other item. Is there any other items we need to discuss today? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Councilman Emerson.
I believe, is there going to be an opportunity for public comment? At least one person came up to me before the meeting and asked if they could speak on a different matter.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda, but we can certainly do that right now if there's someone wishing to speak. Welcome.
My name's Elizabeth Taylor. I own the Woodward Inns on Fillmore over between Huntoon and 13th on Fillmore Street. And I wasn't planning to be here today, but it was recommended that I make some comments. I have an old publication
Thank you.
I'd like you to have.
Elizabeth Taylor, huh?
Yes. I've had a concussion from racquetball, and I get a little unable to put my words together, so please be patient. As I get a little more stress, I get a little bit harder to speak. I came to Topeka in 1977 to attend Washburn. I came from Coffeyville. I'm from a family of entrepreneurial men, and I've been here now over 40 years. Before I graduated college, I started the first women-owned lobbying firm in 1980. I was 21. Women were not professionally in politics. Some of those who are here may not have even been born by then. But I took my passion and formed a business and stayed in Topeka. About 17 years later, God guided me to buy the historic Chester Woodward House, which nobody wanted, and I made it into a bed and breakfast and have been running it since 1994. It is now Topeka's only top 10 historic site in our community chosen by the people, but the only one owned and renovated by a private person. I believe these places should be owned and loved by people, not by governments or by corporations. And so as I found in 1994, after I bought the house and moved in, I found that I was smack in the middle of the hood. I did not want to live my older days surrounded by crack houses and bad behavior. And so with the blessing of God, I purchased the rest of the block, except for 2 properties. There are now 14 Woodward Inns on Fillmore, between Huntoon and Fillmore, 13th, both sides of the street, both ends, and some on Western. My little vision there is not a passion of joy to spend all my money and all my time to fix a neighborhood, but I wanted the beautiful Woodward to sit in beauty. It is now the most peaceful block in our entire town. After 17 years, I closed the firm totally so that I could dedicate all my time to the Woodward. For years, 23 out of the 25 years I've been there, excuse me, would someone get me a drink? For 23 years, I've been collecting and paying the bed and sales tax because I was a premier opportunity for weddings. We housed 3 or 4 weddings every week, 200 to 500 people. We cooked all the food, cleaned up after the people, and stayed extremely busy. We did dinner parties up to 66 people, as well as filled our 80 beds. So as I collected and paid that sales tax for 23 of the past 25 years, I regularly advertised in the Visit Topeka Guide and through Peterson Publication, who published the magazine. I had good placement. I purchased a full-page ad every copy or every issue since about 1994. Very few advertisers always could be counted on for a full-page ad in every issue, whether it was quarterly, every twice a year, or once a year, which it is now. In 2015, apparently it was the last year that this publication was done by Peterson Publications. I did not know that until after the new leadership of Visit Topeka. But in 2015, which was the year before this book, I always had this ad that is now toward the back, or a similar ad. It's the second to the last page. Peterson Publication always gave me great placement. I was always on about page 8 to 15, but I noticed in 16 I was clear at the back. No big deal. I've always been treated so well, I didn't even know there was new leadership at Visit Topeka. I do support very much what they do. I'm thrilled about what they do in participation with the new downtown area. I'm also thrilled with what our police provide for us, especially as I've renovated a hood in the inner city. But I think that as we found new leadership at Visit Topeka, this was the first book that they took in-house. I was, until the 2015 issue, I was listed as a historic site, an architectural attraction, because Topeka High was built to match the Woodward, and because the Woodward, if you haven't seen it, it is a gorgeous historic place. And I've always been included. I've never been known to talk softly, so didn't know I needed that. So when I called Visit Topeka in 2017, I asked for my supply of books to give to my guests, and I kept being promised they would come, and they never did. I wondered why they weren't coming, but I thought no big deal of it. I love the Woodward. It keeps me extremely busy. I'm mostly a one-woman and my friend's operation. I didn't have time to worry about whether I was getting my supply of books. But as I kept asking and they didn't come, I started to look online for myself to see what the new issue looked like. I found there was no mention of the Woodward, no ad, no nothing. So I called Visit Topeka, a little irate as I can get because I'm quite passionate about what I do. I was told by the woman I spoke with that they didn't remember receiving my paperwork for an ad. Surprising to me, I've never sent any paperwork. I just say, yes, I'll take a full-page ad, I pay the bill, I design it with the old publishing company, and it is beautiful. So I didn't really understand what Visit Topeka was telling me, so I asked to speak to their new CEO, who I had not met, not seen, not spoken with, nothing. He was courteous to give me a call back within about a day, maybe the same day. And Brett Otting told me, well, personally, Elizabeth, to tell you the truth, we've taken a new direction. Oh my goodness, what does that mean? I'm sitting there developing a city block in Topeka. I don't know what a new direction means. He told me that he has chosen to focus on his bigger partners, were his terms. I said, bigger partners? My gosh, I've got almost 80 beds. Am I not big enough? He said, well, we're only focusing on those who collect and pay the sales tax. At the time he cut me out of the 2017 book, I was still collecting and paying the sales tax and had for 23 years. He said, really? He was unaware that I was collecting and paying for all of my properties that applied. I was not very happy about it, and I've tried for the last 3 years to find some resolution. I've not been able to find any because I'm not a bigger player, a bigger partner, excuse my words. I am a member of the Topeka Lodging Association, which is mostly hotels, I think, maybe except for me. And I've only been a member of the association for the last few years as I try to find some resolve to this issue. If you look in the 2016 book, on about page, I'm a little hard at turning these pages right now, the section of a hotel grid, I believe it says, as it lists the hotels and the amenities they offer, it says hotels and more. But today, in the 2019 very beautiful book, if you haven't seen it, this is the most beautiful one I've seen. There's no mention of the Woodward Inn Fillmore in the hotel section. 2 of my properties are strictly hotel apartments. They are the Woodward Wisteria, which was a 24-plex crappy apartment building filled with cash-paying criminals. The police would know that property very well. The other new property is the Woodward Row Houses on Huntoon. I use both of those for fully furnished executive hotel apartment stay. I only found out today in a brief conversation with Mike Bell that even though in 2016, page 60, the hotel list is called Hotels and More. There's also a section for bed and breakfast, which does suit the Woodward Inn and some of the other inns. But today, that listing in the new guide is called hotels. So all of a sudden, we've switched from, we're finding our bigger partners and we're adjusting our focus on hotels and conventions, according to the words of Brett Otting, to now the book says hotels. And there's no place in it for hotel apartments that are based for extended stay. The Woodward Wisteria, which was in deplorable condition when I bought it, is now what I call moderate extended stay for business. It houses tradesmen, interns, young new transports to our town, and those who want a great apartment, fully furnished, adorable, peaceful and happy, but not expensive. The Woodward Row Houses, which you see when you come down Huntoon toward downtown, they are very distinctive because they're adorable. They are now fully furnished, luxury extended stay for upper business. And there's no place in the Topeka Visitor's Guide, according to Visit Topeka, for my extended stay hotel apartments. However, online, I did work with Mike Bell. He was courteous and gracious with me to tweak the language so that it is seen online. But in this book, 3 years later, we are still fighting with whether or not we want to include everything Topeka has to offer. I don't believe it's Visit Topeka's right to determine who goes in the book and who doesn't. I pay the taxes I'm supposed to pay, but after turning 60 and suffering from a concussion, I no longer offer weddings, I no longer offer large parties or daily bed and breakfast except at the Woodward Inn, which is my home and the main inn. The other properties are all extended stay for some level of business. So I no longer collect and pay that sales tax and haven't since the beginning of 2017. But still, Topeka has a lot to offer in a place as beautiful as the Woodward. Over these 25 years, I have had soldiers fighting in Iraq who find me online, and I'm just the kind of place they want to be married. I had a man and woman soldier who were fighting at the time. Their families were from Carolina and California. They picked the Woodward online with no other reason to come to Topeka, but that they found the perfect place. These are the kind of customers I get. I don't get a family coming who would stay at a hotel. I don't get the race people coming who stay in South Topeka. I'm a unique property, a property developed by one person and her friends with private money, no grant money, no credit money, nothing like that. And I don't believe it is a right to be cut out for the last 3 years after all that I've given to Topeka. I've been trying to work this out for 3 years now. I've spoken with my councilwoman, Karen Hiller. I've spoken with everyone who will listen, including the TLA, which I am a member of, but they're not particularly interested, in my opinion, although Kurt Young works diligently for this community. He has put in years and years, like I have, to this community, and I appreciate all that he's done. We used to be a regular bus stop for tours. I would hear bus guests saying, this was worth the entire tour. No one ever calls for a bus tour anymore because I believe that guidance at Visit Topeka is on other things, not on this quirky little property in the inner city run by this crazy woman who's passionate about what she does. I'm only coming here today because yesterday I got a call saying perhaps this committee would be a start of where to go if you don't think you're being included after all you've done. That's why I'm here today. I don't believe there's a resolution here today, but I believe this is a start so that you know that focusing on hotels and conventions is not the only thing we offer in our town. As a side note, I want you to know that regularly I communicate with ex-mayor or former mayor Joan Wagner. She relayed to me as we were talking about Visit Topeka that she called last year to get the Topeka sign, top city, cute, kind of contemporary but cute. She called to get it for the Freedom Festival, which personally I don't know much about, but it's a big deal for her. She was told that, oh my, she couldn't have that sign. It only goes to our events. I don't know what our events are, but we are a city of all kinds of people. We are a city where some of us are crazy enough to stay and put all of our money, effort, and passion into this community, not in an always traditional way. I'm not here to complain about the budget. I'm not here to disrespect the police. I'm here so that you know that we are all here doing what we do if we are here and staying. And I would like you to know that Visit Topeka has made changes that are not positive to all of us who have made a difference in this community. I'll be here till I die, so I'll probably come back and talk to you again about something. My goodness, you look just like your dad. I'm sorry, I have to say.
I've heard that once or twice.
Sorry about that. But as we give through our own hands and through private money, it is the word I used to Brett Otting when I had the one and only conversation was I believe it is asinine to make a decision that cuts out part of our community because we don't fit into everybody else. And I would like to see where we are more inclusive in books like this to people who offer everything different. If I were running illegally, if I were a crappy property, excuse my word, if I were a brothel or something illegal, I would understand, but I'm not. I've been down there building the most gorgeous place. We are named as the top place to stay in Topeka by Midwest Living Travel, have been for years. We are very unique. If you haven't been by, I would encourage you to drive by. Maybe not when we're flooded, but please understand that while I support everything Visit Topeka is about or has been in the past and the good things going on in our town, I do not support that it is exclusionary and kicks out people like me. I believe the decisions have been personal. I don't understand why. I don't even know the leadership there, but they aren't cooperating to include places that are different. And I would like for you to know that. If there is a time where a committee could be set up to discuss this, I would be very willing to participate. I've tried to participate until I'm a little hoarse in the voice, but I'm getting nowhere at Visit Topeka. And I certainly appreciate all that you go through, and thank you for giving your time to lead our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to have public comment? Okay, seeing none, next order of business is to set our next meeting date.
Unless you want to, it was just mostly to cover this business, so unless,
Okay.
unless there's something else you think the committee needs to meet for.
No, I don't have any pressing issues, so we'll just
I'm gonna play it by ear.
skip over that, and we are adjourned.
Thanks.